The characters have so many questions, and especially the Ramy character, right? He's trying to answer these questions he has, and I always hope that our show brings people closer to their questions. And I think that this is kind of one of those times, if there's ever been one in our lifetimes. And so, if we can be part of that in any way, that's where it gets exciting.
Welcome to Paley Front Row, presented by Citi. I'm Lorraine Ali, television critic for the Los Angeles Times. The Paley Center is dedicated to celebrating excellence in media, especially now. To help them continue to bring you outstanding programs like this one, please go to paleycenter.org to donate. Today we're here to talk about Ramy, Hulu's breakthrough Muslim American comedy that shattered barriers, won awards, and garnered critical acclaim. The half-hour series, which recently returned for its second season, is created by comedian Ramy Youssef in collaboration with Ari Katcher and Ryan Welch. Ramy captures the Muslim American and immigrant experience in America through the eyes of the confused New Jersey millennial played by Youssef. The actor won a Golden Globe for his season 1 performance, and the show recently earned a Peabody nomination. Joining us to talk about the series and some of the issues it raises are Ramy Youssef and his co-stars May Calamawy, Laith Nakli, and Steve Way. Welcome.
Hi.
Hello. I was just going to start off with Ramy, if you don't mind, because, the show is Ramy. When people ask you what Ramy is about, like, what is the show about, Ramy, what do you say? Because I never even know what to say when people ask
me. It's about someone who is trying to be the higher version of themselves. It's a show about faith in a way that I think is really just about somebody dealing with who they want to be and who they actually are. And I think that gap is something that is experienced through faith and through a lot of different things. In this show, it's with a Muslim family, but I think it's the kind of gap that anyone is going through. So he is figuring himself out, which feels like the plot of almost anything, but we obviously get really specific with how he's doing that.
When it's described like, okay, this is a Muslim American comedy, it is, but it isn't. It's really specific, but it's also really universal. So, I think there's a pressure because there's been so little content that's about Arabs and Muslims, for Arabs and Muslims, by them. I think there's this expectation, like, God, it's got to do so much. So, like, how do you kind of get around that especially when you're heading to season 2 and people know who you are now?
The audience is in a really unfair situation. There are so many Arab-speaking and so many Muslim people, and under the umbrella of Muslim, there are a lot of different nationalities, and there's just so much diversity there, right? And so when you look at our show being the only show currently, and in some certain boxes, the first to look at these issues head on in, I guess, the Western media landscape, right? The audience is in an unfair position because they've been waiting for something. It's like they've only had 24 and Aladdin, and it's like Aladdin, like, and Aladdin's like never prayed on that carpet. Like the carpet flew, but like God forbid he'd pray on it. So there's a real gap, and there is, again, like it's people want to see certain things, want to feel certain things, and so we're kind of at a place in time where I think it's going to change. I think there's going to be a lot of things that come out that look at various parts of the Muslim experience. So currently for me, I just have to say, well, I need to do what I can do well, and the things that interest me, which are limited by definition, knowing that 10 years from now, there's going to be a lot of other stories too.
Right. And just Steve, okay, so you play Steve in the series, who is Ramy's friend, and in real life, you are Steve, Ramy's friend. Knowing each other since childhood, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah,
so
that's great. 20 years.
Wow, okay. So since when Ramy kind of first came to you with the series, because I know you guys had worked together in stand-up, were you looking at it going, this is great, it's never going to work, or this is great, it's going to be, like, what was your reaction with it?
Fear, maybe. No, I was very excited. Ramy and I, we've been working together creatively for going on 15 years now. So, not only do we know how each other kind of works on screen, but we have, I think, a certain level of trust that very few friendships have. So when he came to me with these, wild ideas, I knew that he would do it in a way that would not just be right, but would tell my story in a respectful way. Because I had seen how he was approaching on telling his story, and it was so unique. It was new, it was fresh. So for him to do that for my character, I think it's just, I feel very special and honored to be able to play my character and to tell my stories. But I knew that he would do it in a way that was respectful, but just fun.
Yeah, and I think, what you don't expect, like, you think, okay, this is a comedy going in, this is going to be funny, but I don't think you expect it to be as moving and profound as it is. The writing in there and all of your performances really, yes, it's really funny, but you find yourself like, oh my God, that just hit me. And I was crying watching it. So, because it was good, not because it was bad. So, but the great thing is each of these characters too go on their own journey. The show is called Ramy, but the characters are able to sort of go on their own journeys. May, you play his sister, Dina. And how am I going to put this without it? I'm Arab American too. I am Muslim American. And the way you kind of nail it of the double standards there are for the girls and the sisters in the family, the frustration you have. How much of that had you kind of experienced in your own life that you brought into this character? Or is it just you went in and were like, okay, I've seen it happen to other Arab and Muslim women?
It was a combination of both, because I grew up in the Middle East. So I can imagine what Muslim Americans are going through. But for me, I have an older brother, and I always say he would come home at 6 a.m. and I'd be happy for him and be like, tell me what you did. There wasn't any part of me that wanted to do that as well, because we had a reputation to withhold. So we'd be home by 9 p.m. max. I mean, I wasn't going to go out without my friends. So from that perspective, I wasn't fighting some of the battles that Dina fights, but I could understand them because there were other similar ones that would parallel it. And I guess after living here for a while, you just sort of understand, especially as a woman, you can get it.
And then Laith, you play Uncle Naseem, who has some of the funniest damn lines in the series, but also like one of the most heart-wrenching trajectories. He's like your racist uncle that we all have. Totally. Okay, he's very crass and he's very sort of chesty, boasty, machismo, and then we find out that he's struggling because he's gay. And that storyline, so groundbreaking in any way, but for immigrants, for Muslims, I mean, what has it been like for you this season carrying out that storyline?
A lot of people say, oh, you're brave, and I think it's like, and it's very universal too. Like, while it does apply to a lot of, Arab men around the world, it's also like applies to different cultures, even some, pockets of, white people or whatever, you know. So it applies to everyone. So it's a universal thing, and all the positive feedback I'm getting, you know, it's like from across the board. So, and I'm slowly, you know, like, you know, in the beginning, I won't lie, I was afraid. I actually told Ramy, I don't know if he remembers, like, we talked about it, and you know, I told him, like,
I don't remember that, man. You told me you were excited. You told me, like, yeah, dude, I've been waiting for this. I don't. There was no nervousness.
No, I was excited. I wasn't. It wasn't about being nervous. It was about, like, I told Ramy that I had this. I was thinking about this idea, you know, and he's like, "Well, that's what we're talking about in the writers' room." I'm like, "Okay, I just want to let you know that I'm okay with it." And the reason I said I'm okay with it, not because, you know, I need to be okay playing gay characters, just because I know how I know the backlash that's coming from it, you know, from people in the Middle East, from people I know, and all that stuff. But I'm okay, and I'm ready to deal with it because it's important, and that's what happens. And you know, and you remember that part, Ramy? No, you do.
You were just like, dude, I can't wait. You were asking me about outfits and stuff. I don't know what you're saying.
That's true. That's true.
I thought it was Laith's idea.
That's true.
Yeah,
I think,
no,
you know,
it was a really, it was definitely, I think we try to be as thoughtful with any of these, you know, conversations as, because I think, like Laith is hinting at, you know, there's sensitivities, and again, I think when we're talking about this show gets intimate about faith, and it gets intimate about sex, and those are two things that are heated on any side of it, right? And so I think even for the variety of audiences, this is a show that plays here now widely in America, obviously, but also plays really widely in the Middle East. And so we're really aware of, okay, there are going to be cultural sensitivities on both sides, but it's also, you know, it's not what you would think. I mean, I think there was something even with the Uncle Naseem storyline where we were like, whoa, I wonder how the backlash is going to be. And look, it's not like the show's been out for a crazy amount of time, but so many people from all over the world have mostly been really warmed by the story. I mean, I think people are like overwhelmingly excited to see the portrayal. And again, I think it's because it's going into those issues, whether it be stuff with Steve or with May or with Uncle Naseem. It's trying to go into them walking the tightrope, where it's like, this isn't about it being sensational. This isn't about us trying to change your mind. It's really about us just showing you this is a real place where someone's lonely, and this is what happens when you're there. And I think when that's the end, I think it's harder to be upset, because it's like, we're not telling you what to think. We're just like, come on, you're not going to deny that this person's real.
Yeah, and I think the thing you're saying about walking the tightrope too, right now, you know, because we're in such a crazy, weird time, you know, whether you're talking about COVID, the Black Lives Matter protests, like what's happening in the country right now. I think if any other comedy were to many other comedies that dropped in this time, it was like they came from outer space. It's like, oh, this is a strange time to be laughing at that or this. But because you guys walk that line between so many things that are charged subjects, about race, about identity, all of those things mixed in, it's okay. Like, it works. But were you nervous about it dropping right now? I mean, obviously we couldn't have seen what was going to be going on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was nervous in general just about it dropping during COVID, right? Because we deal with some heavier stuff this season, and we kind of we're meeting people in intimate places, and I think right now everyone is certainly dealing with whatever's going on in their intimate place. And so part of me was like, oh man, are people trying to watch TV to just turn their brains off, because our show's not that, or are people trying to watch the show to kind of connect at that place? And I think it's been more of the latter, which has been really cool. It's been more of, you know, I always think that our show, you know, the characters have so many questions, and especially the Ramy character, right? He's trying to answer these questions he has, and I always hope that our show brings people closer to their questions. And I think that this is kind of one of those times, if there's ever been one in our lifetimes. And so, you know, if we can be part of that in any way, that's where it gets exciting.
Right. And then this season also bringing Mahershala Ali in. Not really a big get, just, you know, just kind of a small thing. For all of you like going in there and either, working with him on camera or just seeing him on set? Was it like, damn, I've got to up my game, or was it intimidating, or what was it like for you? I mean, this is for all of you.
I was intimidated at first, but then he was so humble. And my first interaction with him was in the hair and makeup, and he was sitting next to me. And the first thing he did after introducing himself was ask how he would say something in Arabic. And that just sort of broke the ice between us. And it was just funny being on set with him. Like if he ever stumbled or needed to do something again, I felt like we were all just like, hey, what do you need? What do you need? Okay, fine. Like he needs to do it again, guys. Like I just like, he was amazing.
Yeah.
For me too, I think, of course I was intimidated, and but then when I was so excited to meet him, and then when I met him, the way he received me was, he just smiled and just, gave me a big hug, called me brother and gave me a big hug and congratulated me on my work. And I'm like, again, like May, that broke the ice. And he was just like, literally, he was one of us. He didn't come brandishing his Oscars. He didn't do anything. He was just like us. His questions on the set were the same as ours, trying to figure out how to solve the problems the same way we were trying to do it. And we worked collectively. I mean, there was one scene we worked all day, the dinner scene. It was one of my favorite days and hardest days. And we just had so much fun doing that. It was great. And, and it's just like, he's the ultimate professional. If I ever get close to that level of professionalism, then I'm successful and happy. Yeah.
At a time that I was on camera or like about to go on, I would be in my dressing room, just like getting into my headspace, and I would just say to myself, "Be a better actor than Mahershala. Be 1% better. Be better than Moonlight." And that was really my my big motivation for season 2.
Dude, and Mahershala knew he didn't want to be in any scenes with Steve because he was like, this dude might smoke me, and so that was straight out the gate. He was like, I can't handle this.
Can we just say, since he's not here, that you guys totally achieved that? You're so much better than him, and it's so much better than Moonlight. Really, you guys did it. You nailed it. So good thing he's not here. We can talk about it.
We have time in the end. If we have time in the end, can we talk about Ramy's mustache?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it now. So, is this
What's up, man? Should I just go mustache it up? Go home.
Hey, man.
Oh, is this the first time Laith has seen it?
No, I've seen
probably.
Send me a picture, but
maybe I sent him a picture. Yeah.
This time live.
Is there going to be a season 3 narrative around the mustache, or is it just?
No, it could be clean shaven though. I don't know. I'm trying this out though. Trying to mimic my dad back in the day. Yeah. No, I've had a beard for I think 4 years now, and you look at yourself in editing too so much, and especially with COVID editing, editing was so drawn out that I was like, yeah, I need to look at something different. I'm done with looking at myself the way I know for a while. So here we are.
You're doing, I mean, writing, directing, acting. How are you doing that? I mean, I know you're like not 100% in every single episode, but you're like in the middle of it. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, it's I really care about what we're trying to put on screen. I really like it not only it happening, but it happening in the right way. And even from stand up, there were I remember certain jokes, I would do them and the first time I would do them, they'd be received really oddly. There'd be a weird silence, and I could tell I stepped on too many toes trying to talk about something. I have a 9/11 bit in my special. If I were just break down the topics of certain things between stand up and between the show, just as topics alone, you're like, what's going to happen kind of thing. and a lot of times the first incarnation of those is kind of rough because I'm still trying to figure out what it is. But then I'm like, oh, you just change 2 or 3 words, you just do this, you just time it like that, and then it works really well. And that's 2 nights later, right, on stage. And I think with the show, it's kind of the same thing where I kind of feel like I can't really like not be there for every moment of it because the line is so fine. If something just comes out a little bit this way energetically, or if this word is a different word, the whole meaning is going to be really diluted, and it's going to feel, again, it could feel like shock value, it could feel offensive, and that's not the point of any of those things. You know, we're going into them so that we can have a perspective and a conversation in a real way. And so I think just feeling how sensitive all that stuff is just makes me really energized to make sure that I'm involved with all aspects of it. And then, yeah, that kind of just branches out into all those roles.
Because just the character of Ramy gets in so many compromising situations. He kind of messes up everybody around him. He's on this journey to fill this hole. It's about faith. It's about all those things and purpose. But the way it sort of like fragments out onto everybody around him, which is all of you as the characters around him, you also get stuck in these situations, which some of the stuff, Steve and Laith, that you had to do this season, I don't know how you kind of got through it. So in other words, Ramy, your character isn't the only one who ends up in these situations where you're like, oh my God, you're breaking all these taboos. So I don't know, Steve, like when you guys go to the strip club in Atlantic City, that whole episode, when you were approaching that, was it just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Or was it like, yeah, this is amazing?
I think what was really fun about it was that Ramy was directing it. And that was the first episode that I had done where Ramy was directing me. So I really credit most of my acting in that episode to Ramy's direction. You know, because he has known me for so long, he's able to just get out every little detail of my acting just to elevate whatever scene that we're doing. So, you know, for an episode as crazy as that, I kind of needed that little extra push to, you know, maybe just be like a little more pain, you know, have this kind of inflection in your voice, try it this way. But I was really excited to do that episode because you've never seen that before.
Mm-mm.
You know, like I always tell Ramy, like, you know, like, yeah, you're changing the game for the Muslim community, but you're really doing that for the disabled community too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we can never talk about disability and sex on TV, let alone actually see something like that. So, you know, to be the one to, I just have that story told, it's heavy.
See, I hope I can articulate this, but like when you start season 1, the characters all have like the things they do, like, you know, Uncle Naseem's like constantly eating, and he's just like, there's all this stuff stuck in his beard, and you know, and he's like kind of gluttonous, and that could have been a really one-dimensional, haha, it's the racist uncle who's kind of a slob at the table. But then you get into the reason he's kind of he's eating his feelings, you know? And so it's like, that's what's so brilliant about this show, Ramy, because each character, like, it unfolds backwards why they have these tics or why they are who they are. So it kind of opens up the show so it's not just a one-dimensional comedy. And I don't know, that's what you've done so terrifically here.
Can I say something to that? Can I say something? You know, because a lot of people ask me, like, they see all these little nuggets in the first season, right? That make sense now. And they ask, oh, you know, did you know? Did Ramy tell you? Did you know? I'm like, no, I did not know. And, you know, we didn't talk about it. But my analogy, I tell people, I give this analogy, and Ramy is probably going to hear this for the first time. I feel Ramy has two brains. He has the big Ramy brain, and he has a little tiny brain that's independent from the big brain. And the tiny brain sends messages to the big brain, says, you know what, just do this. I promise you it will make sense later on. So he goes, he does it. He goes, he makes me homophobic. He makes me, makes my wife left for no reason, not explained, and all these other tiny nuggets. And then they make sense later on. I mean, then the brain, little brain's going I told you, see? So that's how I explain it to people, because, it's amazing how everything is just makes sense,
I mean, according to some people online, I only have the tiny brain. But it's so much of this is investigative. We're probing our characters, and I'm probing myself, and kind of trying to get into the intentions of why we've done what we've done. It's you're writing a character and you think about a real life thing and you're like, well, why did I do this in my real life? And then you're writing season 2 and you're like, well, okay, why did we do this in season 1? We know we have certain reasons and certain instincts. And I think it speaks a little bit to Laith's analogy where, it's not always this grand master plan, but you kind of give yourself enough seeds where if you dig deeper, you can kind of really daydream more about what you've made. It's really hard to, I think some people are able to just dream up an entire world and mythology, and you kind of watch certain things and you're like, whoa, they thought of every single thing. And I respect that. But I think my comedy background, really, the thing that I'm really dreaming out is just an emotional state. And so I feel like all the characters have this thought out emotional state when we meet them. And then it becomes very logically well, where does this emotional state take you? And so I think, for example, with the idea behind Naseem, or even how we found on Steve's storyline, how we found May's this season, so much of it is just really thinking about, okay, I'm learning something by what we've created and what we're watching, and where should these characters be going, and where would it really make sense for them to go. And I think the Naseem thing, we kind of had a hint about it towards the end of the first season. And then we were like, is that what we're going to do? And then it became really clear when we were doing the second season that it was going to be the right thing. But it's cool just as a creator and a writer, it's your characters do give you a lot of clues, and they do give, and especially for me, I'm so lucky because all the actors on our show are amazing. I mean, you were saying, no one here is a star name. I mean, will be now, but before doing this, haven't been. And so for me, it's just super inspiring to, watch May and then be like, whoa, this is where this could go. And I'm just learning off of her and who she is, and really, the same with everybody. That's, to me, I just feel really lucky to have that.
Is there any shows in particular, or just productions where where that was kind of inspirational to you? This is a template that that I've learned off of, because I'm looking at Ramy and I'm like, I can't think of anything where I go, well, it's like this or like that.
It's a mix of a bunch of experiences. I mean, for me, when my first acting job, I was on a multicam show. It was a sitcom on Nick at Night, and I would just mess with my lines all the time, and I had really, the showrunners on that show were so kind to me because they just let me improv, which is kind of weird. They were like, if you could still make the scene make sense, on the second, third take, try something different, And so I would constantly try different things, and I was really inspired by that, and I kind of got into a habit early on of feeling like, okay, the script it's a guideline, and we put a lot of work into writing our script. But I think what's even more fun is to get on set and really, I mean, these guys know there are times where, it's just, we run it once and then I come back and either I've printed new pages or I have X'd out and I'm like, we're pulling this, we're adding this, we're doing this, let's go. We got 30 minutes while they're setting up that light. Let's just get it down and let's just do it. And so I'm sure that sometimes puts people being like, wait, but I learned all this stuff. But it makes it feel, it's just fun. It makes it feel alive in a way that's really fun. And again, it's not improvising into the ether or anything like that. It's more just understanding how something actually feels, and then, all right, we're going to tweak, and then we're going to commit to that. And and so that's been just like a really fun experience. And yeah, again, encouraged by previous stuff. It's stuff that Ari and Ryan and I talk about a lot, and just making sure that every moment has gravity and feels like we're approaching it, from a way that we haven't seen it before.
So it's already been renewed for season 3, correct?
No, I mean, not officially. I mean, they haven't. But if you say so, then I think we should tell them, right? Because
I do.
They haven't told me, but if Lorraine said so, then let's do it.
In short, what do you think? Where do you think we'd head with season 3? Since I've just now announced that, in my mind, it has been renewed.
There's a lot to get into. I think it's really it's an amazing feeling that we've done 20 episodes, and then at the end of season 2, there really is this thing in my mind where I'm like, oh, we're just getting started. Like, we've just cracked certain things that I'm really excited to get into. Obviously, there's a lot of redemption and confusion for the Ramy character that he needs to sort through. I think not just to like redeem himself to others, but I think to himself. I think there's a lot that I'm excited to deconstruct and reconstruct with him in terms of why does he actually believe what he believes. And I think that we're going to really understand what his connection to faith is, and kind of also, look at the other things that are really bothering him in a deeper dive. And then I think there's so much to explore with, obviously we know new things about Naseem. There's a lot that I'm really excited to get into with Dina and with Mesa. We have this palette of characters that I think are going to be affected by what Ramy's done, but also I think as a show, we're going to have more real estate to really dive into other characters more. And that's something I'm really excited about. It's the funny joke. It's so funny because people will write this, but I'm like, I said this first. I would always say my favorite episodes are the ones Ramy's not even in. And people will say that as like they're saying something to me. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know. It's going to be really fun to expand some of these, because just from where I am as a writer and getting to direct a bunch of these too, it brings me a lot of joy. And again, like when we're talking about Ramy, it's this ecosystem of people. And so it's going to be really fun. And yeah, I'm excited to dig into it.
I am too. I'm looking forward to it. And I wanted to just say thank you all for being here. And this has been fun. I'm going to just say this has been the most fun one of these I've ever done, because those other people that I've done them with aren't here. So thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you.
Thanks.